This video shows how we can make virtual panoramic views here in the panoramic submodule of ROMEXIS software. So, like always, we have opened the 3D volume and we get by default here in the Explorer submodule, and we can then continue to panoramic submodule by clicking on the name here. So here we have a little bit different selection of views available. We have the axial view and sagittal view still. And here we will have the virtual panoramic view that doesn't look very good yet, but we will modify it. And then we have the 3D rendered view here and the toolbar on the right side like always. Let's then take a look at these panoramic tools that we have as one group here in the toolbar. So firstly, we could try this panoramic auto fit tool here. So this is a tool that aims at automatically placing the panoramic curve on an optimal position for the patient. This is based on an algorithm, so it might work differently for different patient data. Let's see what we can get for this patient. So let's just click here, and we see that the software automatically places the curve here on the dental arch. Like we see here in the virtual panoramic view, this doesn't optimally take into account some part of the dental arch, but no worries, we can always manually draw the panoramic curve and adjust the panoramic view accordingly. So before we start making our manual panoramic curve, let's browse through this axial view a little bit. We can see, by the way, the axial view here, so that we get the right slice on which we can draw our panoramic curve. And once when we are ready, we can activate this first tool here. So now that the tool is active, we can start clicking on points along the dental arch. So we can start here from the left side, and simply with our left mouse button, we can just click on points along the dental arch. And naturally here, we could have stopped here halfway, or we could have started from here. So with this manual tool, we can determine ourselves whether we want to make a full panoramic view, or maybe just half of the dental arch instead. And we can finish by right-clicking. So now we can see here in this virtual panoramic view, the view that was made based on this green focal line that we manually drew here, and then these yellow lines indicate the thickness of our panoramic view. Like we see, the panoramic view now looks a little bit better, but we will still modify it later. First, let's start by modifying the panoramic curve that we just made, if there would be the need for that. So if we would see here that our panoramic curve doesn't take into account, for example, all areas of the dental arch that well, we can later on modify this green focal layer. So for that, we could activate this tool that has a hand next to it. And now we see that the panoramic curve is in this editable form again. So now we could grab these white dots here, and we could move them to a different position. Or we could, for example, make the panoramic curve shorter or longer, like this. And then in order to add or delete these points on the curve, we can keep Control down on the keyboard, and now it's possible for us to click on points in order to delete them, or then in order to add points, we can select here line where we don't have a point yet, and we can click on the line and get the new point added there. So with Control down on the keyboard, we can get this possibility of adding and deleting points. We can make several panoramic curves and views for the same patient. So if we click on this icon that has a list next to it, we can see a list of all panoramic curves that we have made for this patient. Like we see, I have quite a long list of different curves. I could now show how we can also delete unnecessary curves. So I could select here a curve on the list, and I could then click on this icon that has a trash can next to it. So now that curve was deleted, and then I could select the curve that I would like to apply from the list. So now I changed back to the curve that I just specified earlier. By the way, if we would like to change the relative sizes of these different views here, we could grab this icon that has 3 lines in it, and we could drag it so that we could change the relative sizes here. Or in order to, for example, make just this panoramic view visible here on the bottom part of the screen, I could click on this small arrow here and make this completely visible, hiding the 3D rendered view. Or then I could get it back also. Let's then continue modifying our virtual panoramic view. So firstly, if we would like to get this occlusal plane straight here, let's make sure that we have the move, rotate volume active. And then we could just grab the volume here on the sagittal view with our right mouse button down, and we could rotate it so that we could straighten the occlusal plane here. If there would be the need to adjust the volume orientation on a coronal slice view, we could have done that here in the Explorer submodule. So we could adjust the coronal orientation here, and then we could once click on this export view to other tabs button here, and we could get the new orientation brought here in the panoramic submodule. Now we see here, like I said, these yellow lines indicate the thickness of our panoramic view, and like we see, we don't have these incisors in the view. So let's increase the thickness of our panoramic view. We can do it by opening these viewport settings here. So this wrench-like icon next to the panoramic view, and here we can find the second slider with which we can increase the thickness of the panoramic view. So now, like we see, it takes into account also the incisors better. What else we can find here in these settings is this automatic adjustment of panoramic view. So we could click on that in order to apply some automatic grayscale adjustment on the panoramic view. Let's then see what autofocus is about. So now we can see here that this green focal layer doesn't that optimally take into account the anatomy of our patient. Autofocus could help in that. So autofocus would adjust this panoramic curve so that it could take into account better the actual anatomy of the patient. Let's see how our panoramic layer now looks like without autofocus applied. So we have this straight plane basically curved through the patient's dental arch. If we then click on this panoramic autofocus here, so the icon with F next to it, let's see the difference. So now our panoramic plane got adjusted, and we can see the change also here. So instead of our straight green line, we can see this pink line that aims at following better the anatomy of the patients. And as a result of that, we might also see a better image here in the virtual panoramic view. These light blue lines here are the different layers of our autofocus mode. And if they disturb you, you can hide them by opening these default settings, so this big wrench-like icon on the toolbar, and by deactivating the panoramic autofocus layers here. If we would be interested in examining either maxilla or mandible of our panoramic view, we could define the data range so that it only focuses on one of them. We can define the data range by activating this icon here, define data range, and here we have these simple sliders for defining the view that we want to see on the screen, like this. We still have some more possibilities for modifying the looks of our panoramic view. So we could also apply 3D rendering on that. We can find the different rendering modes behind this icon here, this one that has 3D on it. So we could, for example, select here maximum intensity projection black and white. Let's try that. So now our panoramic view would look like this. We could also then, let me maximize this panoramic view. We could, for example, make several slices visible here. And by the way, this control here determines what is the distance between two adjacent slices here. So we could also then apply different rendering for these different panoramic views. So I could right click on top of a view here, and I could then select here another type of rendering for the view. And naturally I could repeat that for all of the slices. Through this dialog that we get by right-clicking on the views, we can also find individual slice thickness definition for each of the slices. Now, as these are 3D rendered views, we can see here under 3D rendering tools the possibility of selecting a panoramic curve. So now, for example, panoramic 1, like we see here, and then we could use these adjustments in order to adjust the rendering still. So this way we can generate several overviews of the patient's teeth and examine them. And these panoramic tools we can also find in the next submodule, which would be called implants or cross sections, depending on your license. So you can also see the tools here.